right, welcome back. We are here at the after show of our Voice of the Creator webinar with some unanswered audience questions. We're going to dive into it because we've got a lot to get through. So, when you're feeling low creative-wise, where do you turn for confidence to keep going? Great question.
I would say for me, I like to just go out. This might be like weird, but I like to just get outside and go do something, like just have like a day out to myself. I think you mentioned this during the webinar. You said that like we probably as creators look at things differently. And so like with that in mind, I see things in everything. Like I might have spark a creative idea just through walking through the city, or just like having a day out like at lunch or something. So like for me, just whenever I'm not feeling creative, I just like to get out and like experience life.
Perfect. What about you, Nya?
I would definitely say I love to go back and look at my old content, like the content that made me so happy, that just made me excited, that made me feel good. I literally remember the exact feelings that I had when I was creating that content, when I posted that content, the engagement that I got from that content. So I would definitely say going back and looking at my old content to just find that confidence, like, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Like, yeah, I got this. You know, that was me. That's something I do all the time.
Perfect.
Just like Joy said, I personally just like to chill, not create at all. Just take that mental break before you get burnt out. So just going out, chilling, doing everyday life stuff, and I'm sure it'll come back to you, especially if you've come this far. And it's nice to be your own boss because you get to determine when you take a break.
Yeah. I like that. Return those text messages from the friends who've been texting you so you don't get back to you.
I was on a website.
Exactly. How do you feel about sponsored content and brand partnerships, knowing that they historically don't perform as well as their organic content? Or do you feel that way at all? Does your brand partnership content not perform as well as your organic content?
Yeah, unless they boost it, it doesn't really do well because I'm sure it's the same way for all of us. Like if you see something sponsored paid, you're just going to swipe no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
It just, especially when it says like ad right in the front of the screen, which is what some companies like, even though we tell them like, it's not going to do well.
It's the FTC. It's the FTC. That's what they're looking at.
I would definitely agree that there are times when that sponsored content doesn't do as well as the organic content, but I have had moments where my sponsored content has done very, very well. And I think it's because I probably made it super organic. And that's what I've been trying to do with my sponsored content now, is to really make it very authentic. Try not to have that Addy type sound or Addy type audio. Just really make it personable and relatable to you so that they can receive it in that way.
That makes sense.
Same for me. Like I've definitely had like we all have sponsored content that doesn't perform as well as organic content, but I've had like some really good partnerships that have performed really, really well. So I would say the same as Nya said is like just making it as organic as possible to like your organic content is probably the best. But like Calvin said, if you have ad plastered like right front and center, regardless of how organic it might feel, if they gave it a chance, sometimes you might like miss out on the consumer, but which is unfortunate, but sometimes brands do prefer to have it like front and center. So yeah,
that makes sense. Now when something quote unquote hits, aka goes viral, do you always take advantage of it and create renditions or series based off of that video? I know Calvin is good at this. Does this work in other categories other than food? Definitely a Calvin follower that asked this question. Nia Joy, do you guys hit on trends as well? Or viral trends, I should say.
There was a time when I was doing viral trends after viral trends, but then I realized that I felt like those trends were taking over the content that I wanted to make that felt authentic to me. Because at the end of the day, you know, you create for your audience, but you also create for yourself too, because it's what makes you happy. It's what drives your passion. So I definitely try and find that balance. I will have, you know, a viral post go viral, but I try not to go after trends because I don't want my page to just be all trends. Like I want it to be a good balance.
Yeah, same. Like I try to keep a balance of both. I don't typically go after trends very much at all on Instagram or YouTube really, but sometimes on TikTok, depending on if it goes with my already like home content primarily over there. If there's like something trendy happening or like a sound trending in home, I might like use that, but like other than that, not so much, just because I want to keep it like true to me.
Yeah, because when you're usually like, if you're shooting for a viral or a trending type video, you're shooting for the FYP or the explore page and not your audience. But if you're if you're trying to hit your audience more so than trying to go viral, so it honestly depends what your goal is with that video. But for food, it's really like food and emotions are tied with each other. So I feel like anything that goes viral with food or trending, I do try to hop on it because like people are like emotionally attached to that.
That's very true. Food is love. That's what I say in my house. When you started becoming a creator, had companies reached out to you, or how did you become more recognized as an influencer? So when you started becoming a creator, did companies reach out to you, or did you just start to get more recognized and get more inbound requests?
Companies started reaching out to me for sure. I didn't even, to be completely transparent, when I first started, I didn't even realize what I was doing. Like I didn't realize that like influencing was a thing, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was like I was just creating tutorials or like whatever I was creating for fun. And then it was like, hey, like we want to work with you. And I was like, wait, what? Like this is a thing that I could like make money off of. So that definitely happened for me very early on. And then it just kind of kept happening.
Yeah, like Joy said, companies started reaching out to me, and it was product giftings at first. So I was definitely hopping on those and posting about it. And then I feel as though when brands probably saw my page and saw, oh, okay, she's making sponsored content, so she's an influencer. And then that's kind of how those giftings started turning into paid partnerships. And then it was just a domino effect after that.
Yeah, nice. Calvin?
Yeah, it would just be all companies reaching out. If there are any companies that I do want to work with, I'll kind of like put that word to my agent or whatnot. But then again, companies do like when you use a product even before the campaign or anything, just so they can get like a familiar vibe with your video and how you present their products.
Yeah, so true.
Their like brand name in your stuff as well.
Yeah, ideally you would want to represent something that you're already using and either love already. I mean, that's where the authenticity really comes out, right? I already use this. This is how I use it. And this is why I love it. You don't even have to give me the checklist or the bullet points. I've got this. But speaking of checklists, do you guys have a checklist when you're reviewing when to work with a brand or not? In other words, what are you looking for in a partnership besides compensation? What makes you say yes or no?
I think one thing that makes me say yes to a partnership is when they give me creative control over my content. I feel as though some brands, they'll give you a concept and maybe they even give you a script too. And sometimes it just doesn't really match the tone of my page, or, it'll sound addy. So I really appreciate when brands give me creative control, because in that way I can market this product in the best way that I know my audience will receive it.
Nice.
Yeah. I would say the same for me too. As far as like having as much creative control as possible, because it's a pleasant experience, number one. And I feel like you get your best work. Like you're going to get the best out of me if you allow me to like have free range on like how to promote it to my audience. Other than that, I would say that that's like, if I already use the product already, or, just things like that is what makes me want to say yes. Like if I see that a brand that I've been using for 10 years, comes in my inbox, I'm like, oh, this is exciting. Like, of course I want to work with you. Like I already talk about you all the time. So,
I already have you in my posts. What about you, Calvin?
On top of like compensation and like having creativity or full control and creativity, I'd probably say if it's a company that you want to continue to build your relationship with, so if you want to do that, the compensation isn't as important, right? Because you want to have like a lifetime deal, or like a lifetime relationship to receive product, or like be a brand ambassador almost, right? So I'd probably say building that relationship with that specific brand.
That's a good point. I have a piggyback question in regards to just kind of creativity and the content that you're producing. Have you ever had to redo your content? And if so, how did you receive the feedback? I would assume you have solid brand partnerships where there's a good feedback loop, but there are a lot of people who could potentially ask you to redo a content piece that you deliver. Has that happened to you guys in any of your partnerships?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely had reshoots. More so, it's usually not like the whole entire, like all of the deliverables that I submitted. It might just be like adding something in, or like just changing the location of where I shot something else. But as far as how it's received, it can be frustrating, especially if you are like super passionate about like what you did, and you were like, yes, this is amazing, this is my best work, and then they're like, can you do this over? But it's just kind of like having an understanding that it's just not what they were looking for, and it's like a respect of like, well, you are paying for my services, so like I have to deliver on, what you're asking for.
Nya, Calvin, do you both approach it the same way as well?
I definitely, sometimes I won't feel upset, but I'll feel like sad, I didn't meet their expectations. But at the same time, I'm kind of grateful for that critique, because that way I'm able to edit it in a way that they feel will be helpful to their brand. I appreciate it. It does. You are just kind of like, darn, because you want to get it right the first time. But at the end of the day, it's all about the perspective. And like Joy said, they are paying you for a service. So you just want to make sure that you meet their needs.
Yeah. So I'm kind of going through one right now, actually. I have to finish it. It is annoying, but there is obviously that understanding. I know in every contract I have a clause of like I have a clause of one reshoot, and after that it's an extra payment. So because I know like brands always switch their minds depending on who it is. So if they ask for multiple reshoots, then I think it's smart to always, or have the creator have that clause of like, hey, only one reshoot, and tell me all the mistakes, because our time is valuable,
That's a good call out as well too. I can easily see brands, I don't want to say taking advantage, because it makes it sound like they're doing it with malicious intent, but I can definitely see, they responded so positively to this change. Now I want them to tweak this little tiny thing and send it back, and then this little tiny thing. So I think adding it as a clause, very good note. Thoughts on the algorithm? Do you follow best time to post system for when you're posting?
Yeah, for the most part, I would say I will definitely say that I have times where I'm like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, I want to share this right now. I'm going to just share this right now. And shockingly, sometimes that goes very well. In as far as engagement, but for the most part, I try to like pay attention to best times to post because it's there for a reason. So
yeah,
it could be helpful.
I agree. I definitely adhere to my posting times and the times where my followers are more engaged and just those days and the times of the days. But there are times where I also want to post sporadically. And I'm just like, why not? And like Joy said, sometimes it pops off. And then sometimes it doesn't. It just depends.
Yeah, as long as the video is good, it doesn't matter when you post it. It's going to pop off no matter what. Comes to like those times that you see on Google, whatever, those posting times, I would say those are kind of rumors. And being consistent would probably be the number one thing in terms of posting and going viral or like getting your video out, just because you have a higher chance of being seen. So.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, I do feel like when you're consistently posting, at least like on Instagram or TikTok, at least 5 days out of the week, I feel as though whatever time you post, like your content is going to shoot to the top of the feed because people are going to be used to seeing it.
Right. And what is your post frequency? Is it different on? Well, I would imagine that like on YouTube, you're not going to post 5 times a week, obviously, because it's much longer form content. But especially like in the TikTok and Instagram world, I mean, Nya, you just mentioned 5 times a week. Like, are you guys posting that frequently, or is it a couple times a week as long as you're consistent? I don't know if you have some thoughts on that.
I want to say I got married in March of 2022. So leading up to my wedding, I was very busy with wedding stuff and just a lot of things, but I also wanted to be present during those moments. So I wasn't posting as much. So back in 2020, 2021, I had time where I posted 5 times a day and I could literally see my engagement doing well every single day. So now, after post-wedding and everything, I'm trying to get back to that. And I've definitely seen a change in my engagement from when I was posting 5 times a day to when I post 2 times a week now.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the goal of the creator. Before, when even I had an audience, I'd probably post like 3 times a day. And then we have like a foundation. I was fortunate enough to kind of post whenever I wanted. But I would say about 4 to 5 times a week is probably my goal.
Yeah. Same. I would say definitely at least like 4 to 5 times a week is like what I strive for. I'm trying to get back into that because I feel like after the new year came in, it was like like taking a break for just the holiday season and then getting back into like the groove of posting now is what I'm trying to do. But I would say 4 to 5 times a week is like my usual of how often I post.
I like that. Consistency. Consistency is going to be key regardless. Now, if engagement is lower one month compared to others, does this affect your rates for sponsored content? This kind of speaks to a little bit more of the consistency all the way around as well, too. But I don't know how much like your engagement rate impacts the rates that you put forth.
For me, I don't think it impacts it as much. However, just because like that specific ad or campaign is going to be on your page forever. So whoever visits your page in the future, that's going to take off if your account somehow takes off again in the next month, right? So I would say upfront to the eye of the person analyzing your account, maybe, but you also pitch like, hey, this person had like an X amount last month. Like this is a potential that you can have the following month after, and that ad will still be there.
Yeah. That makes sense. Now, at what point, and the person asking the question put how many followers, but it could be something else. But at what point did you all sign with an agency or, have an agent? Was it a matter of like how much time it was taking, how many partnerships you had? Was it a specific follower number? Like at what point were you like, this needs to be more than just me?
I would say for me, how signing for me happened was very organic, and it was kind of like a relationship thing. Me kind of like having a relationship with team members already. But I would say that I realized that I needed, or I would have preferred to have an agency after I started doing it full time. I feel like when you start doing something full time, it's like, okay, I have to consistently have money coming in, number one. Number two,
Yeah.
like, I need to like, I need someone to, because even though we are our own bosses, I feel like it's helpful when you have a team to like kind of like encourage you on the back end, or like remind you sometimes like in a helpful way, like, hey, like you did really, really great last month. Like, let's keep going. Let's, just kind of like as a motivation factor. I feel like all of those things are helpful, but it didn't kick in for me for real until I went full time. And I was like, okay, I need an agency now, like for sure.
Was it the same for you, Nya and Calvin?
I would definitely say it was the same for me. One thing that I realized when I really needed a manager or an agency is when I would have talks with my other friends who are in influencing. We would literally get the same partnership, and they would tell me how much their rate was, and I would tell them my rate, and I'd be like, "You got me that much?" And I'm like,
Right.
"I'm really out here lowballing myself." And I was like, I don't know. I'm not doing this right. I need because I know my worth, but I wasn't sure on how to negotiate it. And I was looking up so many different blogs, and I was watching YouTube videos on how to do this and how to do that, but it was not working for me. So I was like, at this point, I definitely need an agency. And like Joy said, the way it happened for me was very organic. My manager and I, we definitely had a relationship before we went through with that. That was very helpful.
Yeah,
Nice.
I completely agree. Just like Nya said, if you are monetizing, definitely get an agency, especially if this is like a hefty income for you. Just you got to know your worth, And I feel like an agent or a manager would probably know your worth more than you would, especially since they are an expert or they have expertise in like influencer marketing. But for me, it happened organically too. He reached out to me through my email, and then he kind of to answer that specific person's question. I had about 900K on TikTok before he reached out, and then like 20K on Instagram, and that was in February 2022. So it all varies. It depends on or actually, the follower count does not depend on when you need a manager. It would depend on if you're monetizing or not.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Now, speaking of outreach, how do brands primarily get in contact with you? I assume that because you all are represented, that it is through your agent, but I also assume that you're getting DMs. How do you guys feel about like the DMs versus emails going directly to the talent agent or going directly to you?
Usually when I get DMs, if it's like a legitimate offer, I will direct them to my agent or like to my agency email. Sometimes before doing that, I will have to like ask for more information, because sometimes people will, even if it's like a major brand, sometimes they'll reach out and it's like very casual, and you're kind of like, okay, what are you looking for? Is this like, are you actually wanting to work with me? Is this just like a product gifting? Is this like, what are you reaching out to me for? But yeah, I personally prefer when people reach out to my agency directly, just because it allows them to go ahead and like answer all of those questions or ask all of those questions that need to be asked.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
Yes, I would definitely agree with what Joy said. I feel like in the DMs, it's very casual, especially if they want it to be like a paid sponsorship. I also feel as though for me, just reaching out to me via email before I was signed, it was just easier for me to keep a paper trail and for me to just locate everything easily. It also just seemed more, I guess, serious in a sense versus just direct messaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say you have a higher chance of response if it's through email. DM are most likely. It's tough because, like, depending on the creator, like his or her DMs can be filled. You just never know. So it's hard to.
Yeah.
Unless you're product gifting, like, hey, like we'd love to send you this for free, send us your email, then I'd say DM's okay. But when it comes to like a further relationship, then definitely go through email.
I feel like also sometimes, and this was a comment that was made from one of the viewers as well too, sometimes DM can come across a little bit like a scam, a little fishy of like, oh, I'm going directly to you. Just give me all of your information and then I'll send this to you.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's out of pocket, but that would just be my 2 cents. We have a couple more questions here. What's the best way a brand can share their content and creative brief with you? Is it through a drive link, through a landing page? What's the best experience for creators?
For me, it's been either. Whatever's easiest for the company. Either way, I'm pretty flexible on my computer. So Doc, Google Doc, PowerPoint, send it however you want.
Yeah, I would say the same. It doesn't really matter, but I do like Google Drives just because it like keeps everything in one place and it's easy for me to like go back to and refer to instead of having to like comb through emails. I can kind of just look at everything all at once. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Nice. Nya, do you have a preference?
I definitely agree with Joy and Calvin. I would prefer Google Drive because, like Joy said, it's just easier to locate. It keeps everything in one place, and it just makes things easier, honestly.
Perfect. Well, so I've got one final question. This is an if you knew then, okay? So if you knew then what you know now about being a creator, what advice would you give yourself?
Oof.
I would say, if you're getting paid partnerships, just know your value and know your worth and consider all the time and effort that you put into your content, and just don't lowball yourself when it comes to those paid partnerships.
Nice, good advice. Who wants to go next?
I would say if I knew then what I know now, I would definitely say to just keep going and to like don't compare yourself to other people because everyone has their different journeys. Everyone is going to have a different experience and yours is tailored to you. Also, one of my favorite things to say is always just whatever is meant to be will be. So like in knowing that, like, don't stress out. If this is meant for you to get this far, you will get that far.
Good advice. And Calvin, ending with you on the advice.
Don't do it for the followers. So I know that we've all gone through the time where we have done it for followers. Like, oh, like we got like 20K followers. Let's do it for like 10K more, right? Kind of lose sight of your brand, who you are. And just being authentic would probably be the best route because being authentic got you those 20K followers, right? So just staying on that path and not being so focused on the number, but more so focused on what you're building.
I love it. Great advice, not just for creators, but for anybody. Don't do it for the followers. That's a popularity thing for sure. I thank you three so much for coming on, letting me take so much of your time to answer all of these questions. I really appreciate you and everything that you bring to social media everywhere.
Thank you for having us.